Welcome to another session here in Solve It with Sir Jude. Today we are going to discuss special parallelograms. So what are those figures included in special parallelograms? So they are rectangle, rhombus, and a square. So why are they called special parallelograms? Because they are parallelograms but each of them has distinct features. Meron silang katangian na sa kanila lang matatagpuan. Meron katangian si rectangle, si rhombus, at si square. So before we go to special parallelograms, let us first have a review regarding a parallelogram. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. So if we are going to have this figure ABCD, para maging parallelogram ito, or to illustrate that it is a parallelogram, segment AB must be parallel to segment CD as denoted by the markings. And segment AD must be parallel to segment BC. So this is the second pair. So kung mapapansin natin, we have there two pairs of parallel sides. So what are the properties of a parallelogram? Going back during your grade 8 session, a parallelogram has opposite sides that are congruent. So what are those congruent sides? So the first pair is segment AB is congruent to segment CD. As well as the second pair, segment AD is congruent to segment BC. So whatever the measure of AB must be also the measure of CD. Same thing with segment AB, whatever the measure of that segment must also be the measure of segment BC. So if AB is 5 units, therefore CD is also 5 units. If AD is 4 units, therefore BC is also 4 units. The second property of a parallelogram, opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. So what are the pairs of opposite angles in this parallelogram that are considered congruent? So the first pair we have, angle A is congruent to angle C. The second pair we have, angle D is congruent to angle B. So therefore, if the measure of angle A is 100 degrees, therefore the measure of angle C is also 100 degrees. So if angle D measures 80 degrees, therefore angle B measures 80 degrees also. So another with angles of a parallelogram, consecutive angles of a parallelogram are supplementary. So when we talk about supplementary, the sum of the two angles must be equal to 180 degrees. So what are the consecutive angles here? So meron tayong apat na pares. The first one, angle A and angle D. Angle D and angle C. So that is the second pair. The third pair is angle C and angle B. The fourth pair, angle B and angle A. They are supplementary. So let us now proceed with the fourth property. Diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. So if we are going to draw the diagonals of this parallelogram and they intersect at E, we can say that since they bisect each other, segment AE is congruent to segment BC. At the same time, segment DE is congruent to segment EB. And then the last property of a parallelogram, each diagonal of a parallelogram divides it into two congruent triangles. So if we are going to consider the first diagonal, segment AC, what are the congruent triangles? The congruent triangles are triangle ADC and triangle ABC. They are congruent with the diagonal AC. How about for diagonal BD? What are the congruent triangles? So we have triangle DAB is congruent to triangle BCD. So these again are the properties of a parallelogram. So let us now proceed with the special parallelograms, rectangle, rhombus, and square. So the first special parallelogram that we are going to discuss is a rectangle. So what is a rectangle? A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. So to illustrate a rectangle, so suppose that this one, ROSE, is a rectangle. Since it is a rectangle, it should have 4 right angles. So angle R, angle O, angle S, and angle E are right angles. So therefore, all angles measure 90 degrees. So this is a rectangle. Again, it is a special parallelogram because all the properties of a parallelogram are in rectangle. There is an additional feature of a rectangle aside from it is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. And that is diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So therefore, if we are going to have segment RS and segment OE to be the diagonals of this rectangle, they do have the same measure. Or segment RS is congruent to segment OE. So let us have some problems related to rectangle. JUDE is a rectangle. Segment JD and segment UE are the diagonals. So if JD is equal to 10x plus 8 and UE is equal to 4x plus 20, find the length of each diagonal. So remember that the property of a rectangle, its distinct feature, diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So therefore, we can say that segment JD is congruent to segment UE. So let us now solve for the length of each diagonal. So let us label the diagonal JD measures. There, we have 10x plus 8. And then for UE, the measure will be 4x plus 20. So out of this statement, since segment JD is congruent to segment UE, we can say that their measures are equal. So substituting the expression for JD, so that will be 10x plus 8 is equal to the expression for UE, that will be 4x plus 20. So applying addition property of equality or by just transposing terms, we will now obtain 10x minus 4x is equal to 20 minus 8. 10x minus 4x is 6x. 20 minus 8 is equal to 12. So therefore, we have 6x is equal to 12. So to get the value of x, we just need to divide both sides of the equation by 6. So therefore, the value of x is equal to 2. Hindi pa dito nagtatapos ang ating solution because we need to find the length of each diagonal. So ang gagawin lang natin, since we already have the value of x here, is to substitute to the given expressions. So that will be 4 times 2 plus 20. So the result is 28 units. And then, for the second one, if we are going to substitute, so that will also be 28 units. So no need to substitute anymore for the other diagonal since the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So therefore, we can say that each diagonal measures 28 units. So let us now go to another problem related to rectangle. So again, JUDE is a rectangle, segment JD and segment UE are the diagonals. So if you can see, we have here the given, we have angles 1 and 2. So if angle 1 is equal to 6x plus 11 and angle 2 is equal to 4x plus 9, find the value of x. So let us now have the property na pwede natin gamitin to relate the two given. So that will be angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary angles. Bakit sila complementary angles? Because each angle of a rectangle is right. So complementary meaning kapag i-add natin yung dalawang angles, the sum must be 90 degrees. Yan. So we have measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is equal to 90. So let us now have the solution. So the given, we have angle 1 that measures 6x plus 11, and then the other one, angle 2, has the measure 4x plus 9. So again, if you are going to add the two angles, the sum must be 90. So that will be 6x plus 11 plus the measure of angle 2, 4x plus 9 is equal to 90. Combining similar terms, we will now obtain 10x plus 20 is equal to 90. By applying your addition property of equality or simply by transposing 20 to the other side of the equation, we will now have 10x is equal to 90 minus 20. 90 minus 20 is 70. So thus we have 10x is equal to 70. we only need the value of x. So therefore, we need to divide both sides of the equation by 10. So therefore, the value of x is equal to 7. So this will be the end of our solution since the question asks for the value of x. So let us now go to the second special parallelogram, and that is what we call as a rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So if we are going to compare a rectangle from a rhombus, a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 congruent angles, and those angles are right. While for rhombus, we have 4 congruent sides. Let me show you a rhombus RHOM. So since RHOM is a rhombus, we can say that segment RH, segment HO, segment OM, and segment MR are congruent. That is based on the definition of a rhombus, or all sides have equal measures. So let us now have the properties of a rhombus. So the properties of a parallelogram, all of them are in rhombus. So there is an additional, or there are additional features for this one. The first one, the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular. So meaning if we are going to have the diagonals RO and HM, they are perpendicular or forming right angles. So we now have angle RBM, angle MBO, angle OBH, and angle HBR to be right angles. So all those angles measure 90 degrees. So another additional feature of a rhombus, the diagonals of a rhombus bisect opposite angles. So let us now have the diagonals again. So if we are going to consider diagonal RO, so diagonal RO bisect angle R and angle O. Let us have the angles formed. So we can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. Since diagonal RO bisects angle R and angle O. And we can say that all these angles are congruent. If we are going to consider diagonal HM, let us have the angles formed. So that will be 5, 6, 7, and 8. So angle 5 is congruent to angle 6, and angle 7 is congruent to angle 8. That is because MH bisect angle M and angle H, which are opposite angles. And we can say that these angles, angle 5, 6, 7, and 8, are congruent to each other. So let us now go and answer some problems related to rhombus. So RAIS is a rhombus. If angle 1 is equal to 9x minus 6 degrees and angle 2 is equal to 2x plus 8 degrees, find the value of x and the measure of each angle. So how are we going to relate the given angles 1 and 2? What property of a rhombus can we use in order for us to relate angles 1 and 2? We have diagonals of a rhombus bisect opposite angles. So we can say that the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2 because angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 based on our discussion earlier. So let us now have the given. Angle 1 is 9x minus 6 and angle 2 has the measure 2x plus 8. Since the angles are congruent, we can say that their measures are equal. Measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2. So measure of angle 1, if we are going to substitute, that will be 9x minus 6 is equal to the measure of angle 2, that will be 2x plus 8. If we are going to apply addition property of equality or just transpose the terms, we will obtain 9x minus 2x is equal to 8 plus 6. Simplifying, 9x minus 2x is 7x, and then 8 plus 6, that will be 14. 7x is equal to 14. To get the value of x, we need to divide both sides of the equation by 7. Dividing by 7, that will be x is equal to 2. That will be the result. This will not be the endpoint of our solution since we are asked to find the measure of each angle, angles 1 and 2. So to do that, we just need to substitute x equals 2 to one of the angles. So the measure of angle 1 is 9x minus 6 Upon substitution, that will be 9 times 2 minus 6. 9 times 2 minus 6, that will be 12. So therefore, angle 1 is equal to 12 degrees. Since angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, parehas lang sila ng measure, therefore we can say that angle 2 measures 12 degrees. Let us now proceed to another example about rhombus. So RAIS is a rhombus. If segment RA is equal to 10x plus 8, and segment AI is equal to 3x plus 29, find the measure of each side and its perimeter. So how are we going to relate segment RA and segment AI? What feature or property of a rhombus will support this relationship? So we can use all sides of a rhombus are congruent. So that is based on the definition of a rhombus. Since all sides of a rhombus are congruent, we can say that segment RA is congruent to segment AI. Meaning, kung ano man yung measure ni RA is equal to the measure of AI. So to solve this one, let us now have the given. That will be RA, we have 10x plus 8. And then AI, so we have 3x plus 29. So since the two segments are congruent, we can say that their measures are equal. That is why we have RA is equal to AI. Let us now substitute each expression. So that will become 10x plus 8. So that will be for RA is equal to 3x plus 29. That will be for AI. Then, applying addition property of equality, or we just transpose the terms. So we have 10x minus 3x is equal to 29 minus 8. 10x minus 3x is 7x. 29 minus 8 is 21. That is why we have 7x is equal to 21. Dividing both sides by 7 for us to get the value of x, we now obtain x is equal to 3. So this will not be the end of our solution since we are asked to find the measure of each side and its perimeter. So we use RA is equal to 10x plus 8 and then substitute the value of x, so that will become 10 times 3 plus 8, which is equal to 38 units. Since RA is equal to 38 units, we can say that all the sides of the given rhombus measure 38 units. Next, we need to get the perimeter of the rhombus. So to get the perimeter of the rhombus, we just need to add all the measures or the lengths of the side of the given rhombus. So we can use 4 times S since the sides or the measure of the sides are just equal. So 4 times 38, that will give us 152 units. So therefore, the perimeter of the rhombus is 152 units. Let us now go to the third type of special parallelogram, and that is what do we call as a square. What is a square? It is actually the combination of a rhombus, rectangle, and a parallelogram, making its definition as a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 congruent angles. Yung 4 congruent sides na feature or property, saan niya yung nakuha? Kay rhombus. While 4 congruent angles, nakuha niya yun kay rectangle. These 4 congruent angles, take note, since 4 congruent angles yan, each angle measures 90 degrees. So let us now use CARL to illustrate a square. So based on the definition, it is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So therefore, we can say that CA is congruent to segment AR, is congruent to segment RL, and congruent to segment LC. At the same time, 4 congruent angles as shown in the figure. We have angle C is congruent to angle A, congruent to angle R, and congruent to angle L. And we should take note that all angles measure 90 degrees. So what are the other properties of a square? So the properties of a square includes the properties of a parallelogram. So remember, we have 5 properties of a parallelogram plus the property of a rectangle, which is diagonals of a square are congruent. So ito, nakuha niya itong kay rectangle. And then the last one, ang nakuha niya kay rhombus will be diagonals are perpendicular and at the same time, diagonal bisect opposite angles. So therefore, yung properties ni parallelogram, ni rectangle, ni rhombus, lahat ng iyon ay nakay square. CARL is a square whose diagonal intersect at O. If CO is equal to 3x minus 10 and OR is equal to 2x plus 15, find x and the length of each diagonal. So how are we going to relate CO and OR? Take note that CO and OR are part of diagonal CR. So that will be, or we can use the property, diagonals of a square bisect each other. So this property came from the property of a parallelogram. So we can use that in solving for the missing length of the diagonal of a square. So let us have the length of CO. So that will be 3x minus 10 and the length of OR. There. So since diagonals of a square bisect each other, we can say that segment CO is congruent to segment OR. Since they are congruent, their measures are equal. By substitution, CO is just equal to 3x minus 10 is equal to OR, that will be 2x plus 15. Applying addition property of equality, or by transposing terms, it will become 3x minus 2x is equal to 15 plus 10. So simplifying the equation, we will now obtain x is equal to 25 units. So therefore, to get the length of CO, we just need to substitute the value of x. So that will be CO is equal to 3x minus 10. So that came from our given. Substituting the value of x, which is 25, that will become 3 times 25 minus 10. Simplifying, we now have the length of CO, which is equal to 65 units. Since CO and OR are congruent, or they do have the same measure, OR is also 65 units. Now, what is the length of the diagonal? If you can see, we can get the diagonal, or the length of the diagonal CR or RC, and that will be by adding the length of CO and OR. So 65 plus 65, that will be 130 units. Based from the property of a square, the diagonals of a square are also congruent. So therefore, we can say that each diagonal measures 130 units. Ulitin ko, nakuha niya itong property na to base kay rectangle. Just a reminder, in solving for the unknown, or the measure of the lengths of the sides or measure of the angles, it is important first to identify the relationship in the given. Kung congruent ba sila, equal ba yung measure, supplementary ba, like that. And then, determine the theorem or property that will support and justify the relationship. So that is all for today about special parallelograms, rectangle, rhombus, and square. So if you've learned something for today, do not forget to like this video, share this video to others para makatulong tayo sa iba. Hit the notification bell for more video lesson, and if you are new to our channel, please subscribe. So this is Sir Jude. Good day!